Okay, I just about caught our witness unaware. Bienvenue au 105e.
Welcome to meeting number 105 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. We have with us a witness who will be speaking to us on our committee study.
I believe a 2.5-hour meeting, which is a little unusual, just to point that out for members in case anyone's forgotten. We'll have an hour and a half with our witness, who I'll introduce in a moment, and then we will go in camera for an hour on committee business. So for the public portion of the meeting, which is what we'll start with, we will hear from our witness who is with us this morning, Miss Joanne Kim. And she is here to share with us, her personal situation and how that might lead to some improvement, hopefully for others in the future. So we will introduce Joanne, and we'll give you. Typically, we give 5 minutes. You're our sole witness today. I think we can probably be fairly lenient on that, so we'll give you the time you need, within reason, of course. So I'll turn the floor to you, let you give your opening remarks, and then we will go into questions from the members in order by party. So Joanne, the floor is yours, and take it away.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, honorable members, my name is Joanne Kim. I'm the wife of John Kim. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. My husband served in the Canadian Armed Forces, Navy, from 1989 to 2011. His overall service to Canada was 22 and a half years, with over 11 years of that service being away from his family. In 2022, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic colorectal cancer, a cancer he got while using toxic chemicals while serving our country. My husband was awarded the maximum compensation for pain and suffering in the amount of $334,424.65, and currently receives monthly compensation for additional pain and suffering, diminished earnings, and income replacement benefits. He chose to receive the lump sum pain and suffering payments due to his diminished life expectancy diagnosis. In May 2022, my husband couldn't breathe and fell. My son and I struggled to get him up on the bed. After calling 911, I sent my son and grandson out of the bedroom and sat with my husband. Honorable members, I have seen my husband cry twice in the 36 years that we've been together. Once was when my mother died. The second time was when he lay on the bed, anxiously waiting for the ambulance, struggling to breathe. It gutted me when I saw him cry out that he didn't want to die. It crushed me knowing I could do nothing but wait with him for the paramedics to arrive. I had to hold back my fears, tears, and emotions so that I could be calm for him. It was later revealed that my husband's oxygen levels were so low from blood clots in his lungs that he could have died. My husband has received ongoing chemotherapy treatments, CT scans, MRI scans, and numerous oncology appointments. These treatments not only have impacted his physical and mental health, but have also impacted our family's mental health. I have had to take time off work twice for mental anguish and exhaustion. And now I will be taking an unpaid compassionate care leave so I can be with him until he passes. My husband was hospitalized twice this past February for pneumonia, and again in June from adverse reactions to chemotherapy treatment. His oncologist said that the chemotherapy treatments were no longer working, and that the best we all can do is to keep him comfortable. He does not anticipate my husband living into 2025. Mr. Chair, while my husband has received excellent service from Veterans Affairs staff, and we have only high praise for them, their hands are tied to the policies they keep. We acknowledge that my husband has received the maximum pain and suffering available. However, we worked out that it was the equivalent to 5.19 years of salary. 5 years for a disease that is robbing him of his life. I have watched this once strong man shrink before me. I am watching him wither from this disease. He shuffles and must use a walker to walk the 20 steps to the washroom. I almost cry when I see his spine and shoulder blades stick out from further from his skin now, his feet cold from the slowing circulation. I see him bend over when he sits because it takes too much energy to sit up straight. I hear him out of breath just walking the 8 steps from his bathroom to our bedroom. Excuse me for a minute. As my husband's health continues to decline, he wants to make sure we're okay when he passes. He's a proud man. He was trained to follow orders and to not ask questions. He does not like to ask for help. So I come before you today from Nova Scotia, asking this honorable committee for help. I request a review of the pain and suffering compensation to find a way to increase it and to also put in motion to swiftly decide on steps to offer additional compensation to our family. Mr. Chair, the pain and suffering compensation was extensively discussed by this committee between the years 2007 and 2010. On October 20th, 2009, there was a discussion between Mr. Peter Stouffer and Mr. Brian Ferguson from Veterans Affairs about a comparison with the British lump sum payment. Mr. Stouffer said, and I quote, "I also have here information on what the British do for their HM Armed Forces personnel. They've doubled the upfront payment to £570,000 for the most severe injuries of death. That's quadruple what we give. This is one of the things I'd like to see changed. I know we work side by side in Afghanistan. The guys are sitting here thinking, well, if you go, your family gets this. If I go, my family gets that. So maybe it's something to look at in the future." End quote. Mr. Chair, I think that future is now. Currently, the United Kingdom awards 650,000 Great Britain pounds. This is the equivalent to over $1 million Canadian. The 2024 maximum lump sum for Canada is $440,991.96. Canada is severely lacking in adequate compensation for pain and suffering. In these volatile economic times, it is essential that veterans know that their country truly appreciates their sacrifices for the freedoms we have today. From fiscal year 2012 to present, Veterans Affairs has sent back hundreds of millions of dollars to Treasury Board. In 22-23, it was $271,634,711, 4.77% of their budget. In fiscal year 21-22, it was $920,995,685, almost $1 billion. In closing, Mr. Chair, I would like to thank this honourable committee for allowing me to speak today. I also beseech this committee to forward recommendations to help my family now, before my husband passes. Veterans Affairs indicates that its priority is to help veterans. I'm asking for that help now. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And, first I want to say thank you to your husband for his service to our country. Thank you for your service as his spouse and his family member. And also thank you for your strength in coming here today to share your family's experience in the hopes, obviously, that you'll see change. We thank you for that. We thank you for reminding us as well of the importance of ensuring that we do everything we can to be there for those who served our country. So thank you very much. And we will now turn to questioning, and we do that in order by party. In the first round, each party will receive 6 minutes. And our first person is Fraser Tolney from the Conservative Party.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. I really do appreciate, and I want to echo what my colleague has said with regards to you coming here, sharing your testimony, thanking your husband for his service. I believe you said it was from 1989 to 2011, 22 years, and obviously you've shared a great deal of that journey, and quite often spouses are not recognized for their service and their commitment and their sacrifice, and obviously your advocacy now as you come before this committee. A couple of things that I just wish to kind of cover, and you made a comment with regards to volatile economic times that we're presently experiencing. And you talked about lump sum, and so I kind of want to unpack that a little bit, if you don't mind. Do you feel the compensation that you're receiving is covering the costs, like the inflation, the volatile economic times that we're experiencing? Are you being adequately compensated right now?
If what you're asking is whether we can pay our bills, yes, we can. It's the anxious moments of what we're going through on a daily basis that we realize once he passes, we may not be able to. Some of the benefits he receives now will go away, and I understand that there are benefits that as a spouse I will receive. But to answer your question is a bit difficult because as we compare bills now, going forward, I don't know. And it all depends on, of course, what the bills are.
Yeah. You talked about anxious times. And when you're going through what you're going through, experiencing, obviously, it's emotionally draining. Mm-hmm. And obviously emotionally draining for the whole family. And then you have your concern about what the future looks like. And obviously, you mentioned earlier on also in your testimony that you've taken unpaid leave in order to look after your husband. Can you kind of just share a little bit more about that? Because that obviously impacts you financially as well.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify, the unpaid leave will be in the future. So I was able to go on short-term illness for the past 2 times. The next time is what's called a compassionate care leave, and it is unpaid through work, and I have to go through EI to receive money. But it will be a lot less than what I will be getting from my current salary. So yes, that will impact us, but it is an unpaid leave from work.
Yes, so we hear time and time again of testimony about the challenges, the financial difficulties, and so you're not the first person that's shared and expressed that, but to hear it from your perspective, obviously as a spouse, as someone that has to be a caregiver. Personally, that's happened in our home where we've had dementia or Alzheimer's, and someone's had to give up work to look after someone that's dealt with that challenge. I want to ask, do you think the government could be doing a better job helping veterans in their time of need and the challenges that they're facing like you are, rather than, kind of adding to their troubles? Like, can you share a little bit more about that?
My thoughts on that is many veterans don't know about the help that they can ask for. Veterans Affairs is a demand-driven type of service, and had I not advocated already for some of the benefits he's received, we wouldn't have even known about them. So to add to what you've asked is that it's when you're walking this road, you don't realize what you may or may not be entitled to.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack that, and I'm sorry to kind of walk you through this, and if it's difficult, I just, what I'm hearing is not very many people know what they're entitled to. And how do you find that out? How did you, that's obviously an interaction with Veterans Affairs. How do you get that information to find out what that you're entitled to? And, how did doors get opened up for you, or, were you pushing those doors down? Because it's obviously you've been pushing some doors down, or you wouldn't be here.
That's true.
Thank you.
I've spoken to many staff at Veterans Affairs who've been fantastic. I've also belonged to a number of Facebook groups for veterans. where we share advice and recommendations. I've also contacted my MP's office, and I've just been talking to whoever will listen to me. And a lot of it is knocking on doors. And, you know, it's something that I don't know if a lot of people could actually do that. You're dealing with a situation where you have someone who's dying, you have that emotional and physical journey that you're traveling. And in my case, I'm just very resilient, and I try to speak with whoever will listen.
Yeah.
And whether that's Veterans Affairs staff, an MP.
But what you're saying to me is just Veterans Affairs isn't the one that's helping you out. It's like Facebook and other communities that are actually getting you the information that you need to navigate through this situation. Is that what you're saying to me?
No, Veterans Affairs has helped us out a lot. In fact, the staff I've spoken to there have been very, very supportive, and they have suggested other benefits we may be entitled to. But yes, I have had to approach them. However, in our conversations that we've had, they have offered, you know, did you know about this or did you know about that? And that's what's helped us along as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolmie. We will now move to the Liberal Party and Mr. Sanson for the next 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Kim, thank you very much for being here and sharing your story and some of the challenges. I'm a Nova Scotian as well, so I'm very happy that you are here publicly sharing that information and some of the struggles. I want to thank your husband for his service, and as my colleague said, as well you. We know very well that when one individual serves, the whole family is actually serving. So it's very challenging on that front. I also understand you met with the minister. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. She came to our home and visited us.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that conversation went?
It went well, I think. I felt it was important for her to meet us because quite often, as you know, you deal a lot with paperwork. There's a file number, but I really needed her to meet us in person so that we could express ourselves. And so she could actually see my husband, see what he is like. And I prepared a briefing note for her, of course, and it was a lovely discussion. I felt she did listen to us, and she promised to try and see if she could speak to whoever she needed to speak to help us.
So, very important that you're sharing the story and you're meeting with key stakeholders. Have you spoken to anyone of the Legions because they also have officers that can help veterans find information, help them fill in forms and whatnot? Have you met with them at all?
I'm actually a Legion member, and our Legion the Legion, of course, is limited as to what information they can provide. And in our case, we filled out the forms we needed to fill out. And Veterans Affairs staff have been helpful with guiding me to the applicable forms that I would need to fill out. So I haven't really had to go to my Legion, although they do know what's going on, and they've offered support. But it's Veterans Affairs that I've been mostly dealing with.
Yeah, very good, and that's what we want. We want to, for veterans and their families to reach out to Veteran Affairs, to ask the question, to get the support they need, and to find out if there's any other type of support that could help, because your challenges changes as it moves forward, as you shared in your story, which is important. So if I'm just trying to make sure I understand fully. So you're sharing your story and you're indicating that Veteran Affairs has been very supportive and the staff has been very good. The real purpose or the real objective of yours is that what the benefits you're receiving is not enough compared to others. Can you talk about that a bit more?
It's the pain and suffering component of those benefits that I'm referring to. It's a legislated amount, as I understand. And so for my husband, he was assessed at 116%. But because of that rating scale, could not receive any more than 100%. And that's the issue that I need to address, because that particular lump sum is not adequate enough in my mind.
So let's talk about that lump sum, because I don't know if you're aware, maybe through your discussions, that today, if you had to take the decision today, you would not have to take the lump sum if you didn't want it. You could take a pension for life. So did anyone mention that? Did you have conversation around that as well?
Yes, there was the option of a monthly amount versus the lump sum. But because of my husband's diagnoses, and at that time, the diagnosis was 6 to 12 months with no treatment, or 75% chance of 5 years with treatment. And so because we didn't know how long he was going to live, we opted for the lump sum.
Yeah.
So
Also, caregiver. Who's the caregiver now? Are you receiving funding for that?
I do, and we also have now a caregiver that comes in during the day while I'm at work. I do the bulk of the nighttime because he's very sedentary in the day. He doesn't. He's in his recliner most of the day, and then it's after dinner and nighttime when I kick in and make sure that he's getting bathed and making sure he makes it where he needs to go without falling. His legs are very weak right now, so I have to make sure someone walks with him.
1 minute, thank you. So, God forbid, if he passes, you said the challenges financially could be greater. Can you kind of share what happens to the funding that you're receiving now versus future if things go as you indicated?
From my understanding, actually I have it in a letter, I'll be entitled to some of the benefits that we currently have. There's the Veterans Independent Program, which I understand may be able to be kept. That's the housekeeping and lawn maintenance. There's the, of course, his pension when it kicks in. Well, actually he does get his pension right now. And a few other benefits, but some other things will, of course, not be available after he passes away. I think the diminished earning capacity and the income replacement benefits will go away, from my understanding. So there are a few things that I'll be able to be entitled to, but a few things we won't have after he passes.
Okay, that's the end of
That's
that
it.
round.
Thank you very much for sharing and for showing up here and for your strength. I know how difficult it must be for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sanson. Maintenant, nous avons Madame Berube.
Now moving on to Ms. Berube, who has 6 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kim, for being with us. I know that what you're going through is very difficult, and my thoughts are with you. You mentioned that your husband received his diagnosis in 2022, and he had received an expectancy of 6 to 12 months, or 75% for 5 years with treatment. Ms. Kim, do you believe that his cancer was caused by his career in the Canadian Armed Forces?
Merci. Thank you for your question. Yes, my husband, while serving in the Navy, was exposed to toxic chemicals. He was also exposed to asbestos on some of the older ships he served on. AFFF was one of the chemicals that they used in firefighting exercises. So to put it into context, my husband was a marine engineer, or a stoker as they called him, and quite often had to deal with toxic chemicals in the course of his duties. And from my understanding from my husband, when they used, for example, the AFFF, which we now know is cancer-causing, it's renowned for it, it also leaches into groundwater and poisons it. When he was serving, they didn't use protective gear. They used it for a variety of things in the course of their duties. As I mentioned, firefighting exercises and so forth. So he was exposed to very many chemicals, yes. And cancer doesn't run in his family either, so it was quite shocking that when he was diagnosed, we were very surprised, unexpected. And just in talking to him and a little bit of research, especially since many of his colleagues he served with have also passed away from cancer. So he did use a lot of chemicals in the course of his duties, yes. So it was from duty.
Selon les informations que j'ai,
According to the information that I've seen, you've stated that your partner received the maximum lump sum payment when making a choice. Was that amount sufficient? If not, why not?
Thank you for that question. When we first found out how much we were going to be awarded, we were actually quite grateful. At that time, I didn't realize, though, that it was only 5 years of salary. We were just happy. We thought, finally, someone's acknowledging that he got cancer from work. And it took a little while to settle in. And my husband's the type that he doesn't like to spend a lot of money, so he wanted to, save some, because we know once it's gone, it's gone. We understand that. However, after doing a little bit of research into his file, I realized what it equated to. And I thought, boy, for a person who has a very lengthy career in the military, who is dying from that career, to get the equivalent of 5 years of salary, that was shocking to us. And while it did help, that money did, of course, help, still does, the realization of what he's going through versus the amount of money he got it just seems so unfair. He's losing his life. And I'm not downplaying this, but he didn't lose a limb. He can't get a prosthetic. He's going to die before the end of the year. And I've heard it from the palliative care doctor and his oncologist. And while we are very appreciative to get that money, just from some of the other veterans that I've spoken to in our family, it's not enough. How do you put a dollar sign on someone's life? Obviously you can't. You just can't. But I think the fairness, and after looking at what the United Kingdom provides for their veterans, is quite shocking when I looked at a comparison. So I hope I've answered your question.
donc votre mamie,
Your husband gave his life for his country. And you stated that veterans have done a lot for their country. Has your husband received any other benefits from Veterans Affairs linked to his health since his diagnosis?
Yes, my husband receives a income replacement benefit, diminished earnings capacity benefit. He also has received support. So there are two kinds of benefits we've received: monetary and actual physical supports. For example, he has a lift chair to help him stand up and sit down. He has supports in his bathroom, and so these things do help him in his day-to-day activities. But he has also received, and he does receive, a monthly amount for the two that I just mentioned as well.
vous êtes une aidante naturelle.
You are a caregiver. You've been a caregiver since 2022, correct?
Correct, yes.
Merci.
Thank you.
And now we would go to the NDP and Rachel Blaney for the next 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Ms. Kim, for being here with us today, and thank your husband on my behalf for letting you come here and be away from him during such a hard time, and of course for his tremendous service to the country. My first question for you is, why did you want to speak to the committee?
I wanted to come, thank you for your question. I wanted to come before the committee today to speak to you all because you are the body that can make a difference. You hear many things from many people. You affect policies, you affect legislation. It's very important for me to sit here in person before you so you can hear my story, our family story, with the hopes that you are able and willing to make this change. And it's so important. And I was reading in standing orders, it says, pursuant to the standing orders, the government is required to respond to the opinions and recommendations presented in ACVA reports, if so requested by the committee. So I'm here today in the hopes that you will help affect change, not only for my family, but for other veterans going through similar circumstances. Many are silent. They don't know how to ask for help. And my heart goes out to those that cannot, because the freedoms we have today are only here because of those in the past that fought for us. And so now we really have to reciprocate. We have to fight for them. And that's why I'm here today.
And so through your testimony and your answers to the committee, I heard you talk a couple of times about how one of the things that you want to see is a legislative change. So could you talk a little bit about what that looks like for you and what your thoughts and recommendations to the committee would be on that?
So just to confirm, are you talking about the legislated monetary change or
Yes.
overall? Okay. So my thoughts on that are, because the amounts are legislated, I think what we need to do is have a really good look at those numbers. Are they adequate with what is being given in comparable Commonwealth countries? We all fight together. Our veterans have all fought in wars together. They didn't care who sat on what side of the fence. They were there for a common purpose, to defend their countries, to defend our freedoms. And so finding out Canada is really lacking behind the compensation means that we have some work to do. We need to bring it up to similar standards like the UK, for example. Mm-hmm. And it has to be done through legislation.
Thank you. And so, listening to your testimony, one of the questions that came to mind is what can the Veterans Affairs do to really assist veterans in recognizing the benefits and compensation that they may be entitled to? And it makes me think of a conversation you and I had not too long ago about finding out that your husband was eligible for a little bit of money for clothing, I believe, and you just had no idea. So I'm just wondering, how do you think that could be explained better to families?
Thank you. It's just to put it into context, I found out recently that we could apply for a clothing allowance, which to me was surprising because I would never have thought of that. But because of my husband's condition, I'm quite often doing laundry. So yes, we get a small stipend for that. But what I see, Veterans Affairs needs to be proactive with veterans. We need to create a Veterans Liaison Office and actively reach out to individual veterans and find out how are they doing? What do they currently get? Is there anything else that they may need? Because like I mentioned before, veterans don't like to ask for help. They're used to following orders, and they're used to just doing what they are told to do. And so having an office that actually reaches out to them, finding out what they might need, and actively being proactive and enabling those systems in place so the veterans can get what they need without them having to come before veterans with cap in hand asking, please, sir, can I have some more, would mean a difference to so many. And, my husband, he won't ask for help. And so it's up to me to try and do what I can to give him that help. And I think having a part of Veterans Affairs, a liaison office, would be a big help to those veterans who can't ask for help or don't know what to ask for.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering, in this process, have you approached the Veterans Review and Appeal Board?
Thank you. In our situation, because we've received the maximum amount, we can't approach the Appeal Board. The Appeal Board is there for those that feel that they were treated unjustly and haven't received benefits that they feel that they're entitled to. So in our case, we cannot approach the Appeal Board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's the end of our first round of questions. We'll now move to a second round of questions, and the only practical difference there is that it's 5 minutes rather than 6 minutes for the round. But we do go now to Mr. Dowdell from the Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Joanne, for being here today. And I certainly want to thank your husband, John, as well, for the service that he's provided to our country. I know this must be difficult as well to come here and taking time out of time with your husband to come here and educate us on the issues that are at hand. And I really got to commend you that you're helping others. You want some help now too, but that you're really trying to be a spokesperson for those veterans that we don't hear from all the time, quite frankly. So I really want to thank you for that. And I think it's important here before this committee. Most of the time in committee, what I've found since I've been here, not always on this committee, but since 2019, is that we do lots of studies. Usually it's something's picked up from the media more so than the actual study gets accepted. And then sometimes we see change. So maybe that could be something that perhaps could happen today. But meeting us is fantastic. It's good to get out there. You seem to be meeting all the stakeholders. You said earlier that you met with the minister. When did you meet with the minister?
July 8th.
July of this year. So I'm just
Yes.
curious. So that's probably the best recommendation that you have. But I'm just wondering, have you had any follow-up from there as to what the next steps might be?
From her visit?
Yeah.
I did receive some correspondence from her, and thanking me for the meeting, so forth. But the recommendation was to go before the appeal board, and then there were other outlets as well. For example, Call Veterans Affairs, the 1-800 number. So, but unfortunately, she was unable to affect any change. Is the answer I got from my request.
Okay. So I guess that's not really probably what you wanted to hear. I would imagine you were kind of frustrated with that fact, I would imagine.
I was disappointed. I was hoping that by meeting her in person, she would really understand what I was asking for. And unfortunately, I didn't get the answer I was hoping for. But, I understand sometimes it's difficult for ministers to get the changes they need. So,
So through our study, it'll be a recommendation more so than the ability to actually move forward with those recommendations. I just wanted to clarify that part of it. But anyway, I thought another thing that you said that was really, really important that I've sort of witnessed since I've been in this committee, one of the newer members, is that the confusion, and I think, like you say, a liaison officer is probably a fantastic idea. I know that it's so hard to know who to go to for help. And I don't know, did you find, did the caseworkers move around? Like we had a new contract last year. Did you find that they're moving, you're not getting the same caseworker all the time, and that wears on the veterans?
I believe it could. In our case, we've been very fortunate. We've had 2 caseworkers, and one of them, I understand, deals with some of the different benefits covered by Blue Cross. The other caseworker deals with more so, the Veterans Affairs side of things. So we've had 2, but I never knew who I was going to speak with, because when you call the 1-800 number, you just get who answers the phone, and then they refer you to whomever is the most appropriate person, and you don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah, many of the veterans, I live in a military right beside Angus Base Board, which is one of the larger bases, but I hear often that they seem to feel more like they're a number than an individual. That's what I hear the most. Would you say that's kind of the case?
I would agree, yeah.
Okay, that's good. And then the other question I had, which was kind of interesting, is your husband had a long career, and the amount that was received was $334,000. Is that taxable?
No.
Okay, so it's not taxable. And then, so for 20 years, 300, so 60, mid-60s a year roughly is the cost. What would your recommendation be? Like if somebody got it and after 4 years, like that they were in the military, should they get the same as 20 years? Like, I'm just wondering what you're hearing from the veteran side. Like, how would you judge if it caused your cancer, no matter how long you're with the service? Should that be the reason, or is, like, I know that the amount's too low, probably, but I'm just having a hard time with the years of service part. Like, it's great that you served 20 years, but if someone was there 4 years and happened to get some kind of condition because of the military, should they get a lot less, I guess?
Well, as we know, cancer doesn't discriminate how long you serve in the military. And so my feeling is, why wouldn't they get the same amount?
Okay, that's,
Regardless of how long they served. Cancer's cancer. If it was caused by service, then they should get the same amount. I mean, I don't mean the same amount person to person, but they should still receive, in our case, the maximum. So if, your example, if the person is rated 100% on that scale, of course, they should get the same amount. Doesn't matter how long they've served.
okay.
If they got their cancer from service, then
Okay, that's what, just
Yeah.
because we were talking about the years of service, how much
Yeah.
per years, I was wondering if that was a basis that maybe we could go upon, is if they work, they get more, or
no, it was just for context to say how long he served.
how much? That's it? Okay, I'm done. Okay.
Thank
Oh, 19? Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming here today.
Okay, thank you. And for our next round of questions, we'll go to the Liberal Party and Mr. Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being with us, Ms. Kim. Your testimony is powerful. Your husband would undoubtedly be enormously proud of your advocacy for him and for others in your situation. Ms. Kim, there's a couple of things that I want to canvass with you. Firstly, when we have veterans appear before this committee, most of the time they're here because they have an issue with Veterans Affairs, that Veterans Affairs hasn't met their expectations. The number of veterans that we have that repeat that is actually not aligned with the data that is collected by Veterans Affairs in terms of levels of satisfaction. Your story actually is. So in your testimony today, you described your interactions with Veterans Affairs as excellent service. The staff has been fantastic. They've been very supportive. They pointed you to other benefits and that you've been very fortunate. When we have people here that aren't happy with their service, we delve into that in some detail. So I'm here to ask you to expand a bit on your satisfaction with how you've been treated by Veterans Affairs and their staff, and can you cite any specific examples for the committee?
Yes, thank you. I can cite a few. For example, one time my husband's caseworker came to our home to visit us.
As did the minister.
As did the minister, yes. And I really appreciated that because it showed me that they cared. And with this age of technology, it's easy just to pick up a phone and talk to someone. What's your file number? You know, that's the first thing that you have to give. You know, get your file number. But to have a caseworker take time to come to our home and explain to me and present a letter of, okay, here's what you're entitled to now. Here's what you're going to be entitled to when he passes. That went a long way. That showed me that staff really did care. And another time, I've received phone calls from the other caseworker who's dealing with the VIP and the Blue Cross benefits. Call me to say, look, for example, I was trying to get approval for some in-home caregiving. And it took about, I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 weeks. And I was told that because it was a lot of money, it had to go up to the next level for approval, which for me is a bit frustrating because no amount of money is enough, but that's a whole different discussion. But she took time, this woman took time to call me to say, look, it was a Friday. She said she was just about to log off and she noticed the approval came through, wanted to let me know right away, so that I could let the service provider know. Because I was at a point where we were willing just to pay it ourselves before the approvals came in because it got to the point where we needed someone to come in while I was at work. And so for her to take time on a Friday to do that for me meant the world, and it took a lot of stress off of my shoulders. So those are a couple of examples I can give to you.
Thank you. With the little bit of time I have left, I want to talk about, I'd like to hear from you about the other benefits separate and apart from the maximum lump sum for pain and suffering. Because I think if we're going to do a fair comparison of Commonwealth countries, the entire suite of benefits offered to injured and ill veterans are relevant. So I think what I heard you say is that there's a caregiver's benefit, a Veterans Independence Program, a military pension, diminished earning capacity allowance, income replacement benefit, along with the physical supports and the clothing allowance. Is that the entire list?
I'm just having a look here. I think you've covered it, but let me
Sorry.
just...
Just, Ms. Kim, are you comfortable providing in written form to the committee a summary of the benefits and their status? We're not going to have enough time to pursue this topic.
I can certainly provide that to you in written. Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just let me know who I need to send it to.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now move to the second portion of our second round where the Bloc Québécois and the NDP each get 2.5 minutes to ask some further questions. So, Madame Berube.
Madame Kim, selon
Ms. Kim, in your view, how many years would be acceptable for a benefit? Or for compensation, rather.
For compensation. It all depends on the severity of the illness or injury. Right now, there's a rating scale. So if a member is hurt, for example, they get assessed and they're placed on the scale, and that is the compensation they receive based on the severity of their affliction. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that question because every veteran or member is different. So there's mental afflictions, physical afflictions, and it just all depends on the situation, I think.
croyez-vous si avoir
Do you believe that if you'd had all the information, services, and compensation that you needed, or rather, do you believe that you received all of the compensation and information that you needed from Veterans Affairs?
That's a good question. To answer that is I'm not sure because I'm still finding out about benefits that we could be eligible. For example, the clothing allowance. I had no idea about that. It's a nominal amount, but I had no knowledge of that. So if we don't know what's available, we don't know what to ask for.
et aussi quel impact
What will be the impact on your personal life following the passing of your husband?
That's a good question. Currently, we have our son and grandson that live with us. And my older son, ironically, is in the Navy on the West Coast. And he has his family out there. And initially, it'll be a lot of paperwork. And then we have to survive in a new normal state of family. And so that means after all the paperwork is done, after we know what we're entitled to, then we'll be able to know how to move forward. And of course it'll be a gaping hole without my husband. But as we all know, life goes on with or without us, and it's a matter of how do we move on from that. And I think that he would be happy knowing that I've done all that we can to try and make a better life for our family. And that's what it all comes down to is we all want what's best for our families. We take care of our families. And so I think if he knows that we're okay. We're going to be able to, for example, make the mortgage payments, make sure that we're able to move forward. That'll give him peace of mind. But moving forward after he passes, of course, will be difficult. But we'll be able to do it.
Merci. And now Rachel Blaney for 2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair. So thank you again for this testimony. I'm finding it really helpful and very powerful. It was interesting for me to listen to some of the questions, and I just want to make sure that that I understand clearly what I think you're saying to us, which is that two things can be true at the same time. That you can be happy with the kind service that you've received, the fact that you've had a caseworker come to your house and help, the fact that you've had the minister come to your home and learn about your story. And at the same time, you can be very disappointed with the fact that the compensation package that you received was just not enough. So I just want to make sure that that's what I'm hearing from you, is that both things are true at the same time.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Thank you. So I guess my question to you now is, as you were going through the process, you've just found out that your husband is very ill and will not live for a very long time, that it was related to the service that he provided to his country. And I'm assuming that you had a conversation with FAC about what were the options for you moving forward. During that period of time, was there any supports offered to you and your husband in terms of emotional supports to have that discussion? Because, you know, one of the things that I've noticed in the service is there's a lot of good people, but they may not have that higher level of trauma-informed service delivery. And it seems to me that if you're in that space of like suddenly having to take on the possible death of your husband sooner than you ever expected, a serious illness, and then looking at options and you're not sure which one is the best fit, was there any support for you and your husband during that time that just dealt with how you were processing all of that trauma, grief, and trying to face reality in that context?
Thank you. We were offered to speak with a social worker, which I took up their offer, because sometimes it's easier to speak to someone outside of the family, and they have a different perspective on things. So the emotional support was offered. My husband chose not to take it. He's just stubborn. However, he and I have chatted, and it's difficult for some family members to speak about their internal grief, because everyone grieves differently, and we are grieving now. And it's hard to open up to that. It's also hard to ask for that help from Veterans Affairs. However, it has been offered to us.
What do you think would have made it easier for you to accept that help?
And we'll have to make that a real quick response. We're actually over time, but we'll let you do a quick response.
Just from them offering it to us is important, and I think that providing the information to us is important as well, because if you don't know what's out there, you don't know who to ask.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to our third round now, back to 5-minute rounds, and it will be Kathy Wagenthal from the Conservative Party for the next 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Joanne, thank you for being here today. I appreciate the circumstances you're in. I've been on this committee for 9 years now, into my 9th year, and believe me, in my own circles with veterans, there are many that have experienced what you are experiencing at this point in time, that I have deep feelings about. One who definitely was in the same circumstances as you, and of course her husband wanting her to have that care level, and he has passed away. So I think it's really important that we look at the fact that many, many veterans are well cared for and happy. We have 400,000 plus in this country, and many, many are well taken care of by Veterans Affairs. However, we do have a certain cohort that do seem to face constant challenges that are listening today and of course are cheering on the purpose of your being here. However, when they hear things like a caseworker came to your home, you had time with the minister, you've been offered things and provided information, that is not the norm for all veterans. And so what you've mentioned about the need for a liaison officer has been brought up often in this place, and I can't agree more with your thinking on that. It certainly says something of importance. Can you share with us just a round figure of the difference between what your husband is currently receiving through these various programs now versus what you will receive for the pain and suffering when he passes away? What kind of a change is that to your family income?
Monetary-wise, it'll be significant because I don't have
Just a broad number. I'm not expecting details. I mean, I understand
Yeah,
that Mr. Casey's
yeah,
asked.
I'd have to go through some of the paperwork. Actually, I was looking for the letter outlining it, but at least about, gosh, I want to say 1,500 maybe.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you. How do I do this? I have a veteran just yesterday who reached out because he has gone to the back office. It's not in my riding, I'm from Saskatchewan, but Ontario, and of course it's across the country. And there's no one there. And he calls and there's no answer. And basically there's a notice that you can have a meeting, but you have to set up an appointment and then they will reach out to you. And he found that very disconcerting when you think that across the country there are many offices, and the idea is that, yes, when you have concerns or needs, they should be available to answer your questions. So did you face that at all, or how did you get in touch with Veterans Affairs? Was it through your Legion, or is it through an office? How were you able to navigate?
A bit both. I call the 1-800 number often
Okay.
and was able to connect with someone.
How long does
also-
that usually take?
It's been fairly quick, actually. Yeah, I haven't had any issues with
So
the 1-800.
mostly through reaching out through the
Yes,
number? Okay,
yes.
fair enough. I'd just like to make sure that you understand how this works. We're pleased to have you here today. At the same time, in discussion, there are many others that I think could offer testimony in this circumstance. So as a committee, what our role is to study specific issues or policies. And what we do is come up with recommendations, which then go to the minister. So it is the minister that responds to our recommendations and determines which ones they would like to consider. So I am concerned here with the fact that you had 2 meetings with the minister and she could not affect change, which again then indicates, I think, an imbalance of the role of the minister versus the deputy minister and the folks who run back. And so I would go back to the minister again and just see if she would encourage a study on this issue, because it's true, it's very hard to make sudden changes to circumstances. I appreciate you want long-term change, but you are also asking for a difference in your family's life now, and I applaud you for your efforts. But I know that in certain circumstances, suddenly that can happen for some. With the critical injury benefit, this has happened. There are rules and regulations around how it's to be processed and used, and then all of a sudden it is used differently. So,
And we're out of time, so I don't know if there was anything that the witness wanted to respond to there, or?
Sorry.
No, not in particular? Okay, no problem. Thank you, Ms. Wagenthal. And now we'll go to the Liberal Party and Wilson Miao for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Kim, for being here, appearing before us in the committee. I'd like to offer you some more time since I'll be the last person who will be asking you some questions, to share with the committee on your point of view, because you mentioned about a lot of the benefit programs are not known, therefore not knowing where to apply and how to apply for. And if you can share with us the view of what kind of system would you feel be helpful to your circumstance and those who are also listening and experience the same as you.
As I mentioned before, I feel that if there was a Veterans Liaison Office that reached out to veterans to talk to them about their circumstances and then go through the benefits available to them that they may not know about, would be so helpful. Because as I mentioned, we didn't know about the clothing allowance. Sounds minimal, but it was available. And the only way I knew about it was brought up by the Veterans Affairs staff. So proactively reaching out to veterans and their families would help also understand their family situation to see what other programs or benefits could be available to them. Otherwise, as I mentioned, Veterans Affairs is a very demand-driven office. So unless you know what you're asking for, you don't know what's available.
So I understand, like, during the pandemic, a lot of the veterans office were closed. And even before that, a few of the offices were closed, affecting the quality of service to our veterans. Hearing from you, it seems like having a liaison officer, having that proactiveness to be there in person, listening to the stories of the veterans and understanding the circumstance to see what area can be helpful to them, it's really important. Other than that, do you feel there's any other recommendation or suggestion you would put forward to us so that when we draft the report of this study, that can also support any future veterans that is going through the hard times like you?
So my other thought on that goes back to serving members. So, and my father was in the military too, so I quite a lengthy military family history. What I feel is that before a member actually gets discharged from the military service, I know there are seminars that they can take to discuss about Veterans Affairs, and they're given some, and I say that with quotes, some information on what they could be entitled to. I think it needs to go a bit deeper. So we have to take a step back into D&D and have them provide more information to those that are possibly might not need these services for 20 years in the case of my husband. But provide the information ahead of time so that if something happens, they can reference this binder or package of information to say, okay, so if this happens to you, this is who you can contact, this is what you might be able to be entitled to, so that they have a very clear and transparent picture of the services that could be available to them. And just giving them that information, I think, could be very helpful for when the time comes and they are a veteran, they've got something to look back on and say, oh, that's right, I have that in my package here.
And knowing you have a family full that serves our country, I think most of them who are serving us when they are being deployed, one thing goes through their mind is, when can they come home? And if they can come home in one piece. And I think what you have suggested with those guidance will really help them to understand what they would expect before they go into service. I know time is running short. Is there any additional information you would like to share with the committee, or something you can submit further so that we can also incorporate it as part of our study?
My recommendation, well, my suggestion is that there needs to be a more proactive approach on things. Instead of demand-driven, as I mentioned, a lot of people don't know what to ask for. There needs to be that thinking that, okay, how can we best approach veterans to let them know what they're entitled to in different circumstances? And whether that needs to be a table laid out of, if you have experienced this, this is what you could be entitled to, here's who you can contact. Clearly lay it out. Obviously, there are a lot of afflictions, mental and physical afflictions and so forth. And it's work. It'll take work in order to develop this, but I think having it clearly laid out would be a big help.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Kim.
Yep, that's the end of the time for that round. And I think what we'll do at this point is we'll give each party another 2.5 minutes each. So we'll begin. Nous avons Madame Berube.
Ms. Berube has 2.5 minutes. Ms. Kim, your husband is very lucky to have you. There are veterans who are alone and who don't have the support of their loved ones. Every time you had to start a request, were you given a new liaison officer, or did you always have the same?
That's a very good question. Sometimes I had to go into my VAC account and send them a message, and I don't know who initially would see it, and then they would pass it along to the applicable care, our caseworker. So even though we've had two, sometimes I would speak to somebody else. So yeah, it would be great if we had a direct contact with those care workers, or caseworkers, pardon me. But I think just the way the system is set up is you don't know who you're going to be speaking to until you mention, oh, I've been dealing with this person as our caseworker. So initially, no, we don't know who we're going to talk to until we mention, for example, my husband's file number. Then the person can look it up and say, oh, okay, so you've been dealing with this person. Let me pass you over to their voicemail, or I'll give them a message for them to contact you.
Comment nous, les membres du comité,
How can we as committee members help you?
That's a very good question. I think it's the awareness of what we're going through and how the pain and suffering compensation is inadequate is something that I want to bring that awareness to you in person, so that when you make recommendations, you know how impactful a decision and recommendation that you make is to people like me, my husband, other veterans. And I think it's just very important that you realize that this particular issue has been discussed before in length, but yet nothing has happened. There has been no concrete change. So my hope is that you can affect that change. And going forward, I look forward to hearing that change has been recommended. And like I said earlier, it is a legislative change, so I know it takes work. But I know that this committee has the ability to help affect that change.
Merci. C'est tout pour cette tour.
Thank you. That's it for this round of question.
AP for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I was admiring the huge file that you've brought with you that obviously is what you're using to track everything for your husband. So I guess I want to just thank you for being such a strong advocate. Not all people can speak during these hard times. And when you have the capacity to do it, I really appreciate you stepping up and doing it, because when you speak, you're not just speaking for yourself. You're making voice to what a lot of veterans and their families are experiencing. So thank you for being willing to take that on. So when I look at that big file, I'm just wondering if you could tell us how this process has been for you in terms of applying for different things. And was there any resistance from VAC about accepting the fact that the cancer that your spouse has is connected to service?
Yes, thank you. When I first submitted the application, I knew it was going to take a long time, and I knew we didn't have the luxury of time. So I approached our Member of Parliament to expedite it, which they did. And the initial application indicated he had been exposed to the toxic chemicals. Yet I found out later that it was the asbestos that they indicated was the reason they were accepting his cancer.
Wow.
So even though I stressed the AFFF chemical, I didn't even think about asbestos. And it was only after we received word that he'd been accepted and found out it was the asbestos that I said to my husband, "Were you around asbestos a lot?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, around the older ships, sure."
Wow.
So it was quite a surprise to find that out.
Okay. And so I'm glad to hear that that they did accept it, but scary to see that they accepted it for something that you weren't thinking of. But again, you talked about the application process. Did you find it overwhelming, or was it fairly clear in that process of applying for whatever resources you could get?
Yes, the application process can be quite daunting.
Yeah.
It's very intimate in what you submit, because of course you're telling a stranger or a medical professional you've never met why you think you deserve this, and that can be hard for someone to express. It's like somebody asking you what you do in your job. How do you just do it? You know, you don't think about the exact duties and what you do. So in filling out the application, I had to ask my husband some very interesting questions and found out some scary answers. And, you know, for example, him having to hang upside down just to fix machines and things like that, and how he injured himself doing this or that, and I never heard about it, was pretty scary to me. So these applications can be quite intense for some members, especially I think those suffering from psychological afflictions. It can be hard to relive those on paper and try to express what happened without it triggering something. And in the case of my husband, just filling this out made me very upset, sad, and I felt really bad for what he had to go through, because we as a family, we don't know what our spouses do in their positions. My biggest fear was when he was at sea, you know, what happens if there was a fire? That was my biggest worry while he was away. But then to hear the other things in filling out this application was pretty shocking to me. So anyway, sorry, I'm off a little bit, but the applications can be quite complicated, and they do take time.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's all for that, but I'm just going to use the chair's prerogative to just ask a follow-up question on that if I can, because
Sure.
it sounded like where that was headed was, you know, you talked about the lengthy and the stuff you learned, but how much there was involved in all of that. Can you maybe just share with us, did you think that was overdoing it? Like, for example, there were probably things that would have been on his file from his time in CAF that maybe you didn't need to have to go through all of that again. And did you find that you were asked to do this over and over again, or was it only one time that you had to sort of share all of this information with one person at Veterans Affairs? Because we've often heard from veterans that they end up having to reshare it multiple times with multiple people. So was that your experience, or was yours better than that, I hope?
So just so I understand, you're not talking about the application, but just in general.
I mean, what you were referring to was having to give a lot of information
Yeah.
about things that maybe you weren't even aware of, but that, you know, probably aren't easy to have to share with someone you don't know. And we've often heard from veterans that, you know, for example, stuff that would have been on their file already that could have been shared by the CAF to VAC, that could have prevented them having to kind of go through that stuff, or having to retell that story to 2, 3, or, you know, 7 different people at Veterans Affairs over the course of some time, rather than just having to tell it once, which really is what should happen, I would say. Was your experience that you had to retell this, or were you able to actually have it sort of just be a one-time experience?
Well, luckily for us, I only had to retell it a couple of times. But you mentioned something interesting is many of this would have been in his file. A lot of it wasn't. In their everyday duties, sometimes you don't see that in a formal piece of paper because, you know, if they're firefighting, if they're doing this or that, you're not going to see some of these details. So when he's reliving it to me and I'm having to notate it down or tell somebody, to learn of that was, like I mentioned, surprising and shocking. So to answer your question, I've only had to retell it a few times, but each time, yeah, it is difficult.
I would say, you know, submit that more than once is too much, but thank you for sharing your experience with us on that. We do have two more rounds of 2.5 minutes, and the first will go to the Conservative Party and Ms. Wagenthal.
Thank you so much, Chair. And Joanne, you mentioned that you were surprised that asbestos was what Veterans Affairs indicated was the cause of your husband's cancer. Did they require a doctor's diagnosis to verify that? Just a really quick yes or no, because I have a couple other questions. Or did they simply say, this is what caused and why you're getting the funding?
They just said that's,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. You talked a lot about the lump sum, and it sounds like the two of you knew what you were doing with that fund. Of course, a lot of times there's young guys, all of a sudden they've got this money and it goes to the wind. So I think educating veterans on how that would work best for them might be a good thing to just offer. But also, I'm wondering about that. And also, now that you've been through this process to some degree, do you feel the lump sum versus the monthly pension, how does that work as to be better for you following your husband's passing away? Do you see that there's a difference? Or the fact that you've managed it well, are you happy with where you're at with that, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, it's a good question that you ask. Thank you. It all depends on your circumstances, I feel, how you approach that. And in the letter of acceptance, they do offer financial assistance if you need it.
Good.
And so to answer that, I think it's just your circumstance and where you are in life. And of course, if you're younger, it might be depending on how you've been educated in financial management. But I think my whole point was that the lump sum was only equivalent to 5 years of salary. That to me was the jarring moment when I realized, wow, that's it.
We'll have to follow up on that. I appreciate that. So just briefly, then, I'd like to go back to the diagnosis of your husband's cancer. What did the doctor indicate was the cause, or was there any indication as to what caused the cancer? Because your impression is it's something very different than what Veterans Affairs suggested.
Doctors can't tell you 100% how you got cancer. All they can do. Pardon?
Did they make a recommendation based on your feedback to them of his lifestyle or anything like that?
They said it could have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could have been which?
Oh, it could have been caused by the chemicals he used
Okay.
on the ship.
But they didn't mention asbestos.
Well, at the time, we weren't even aware it was asbestos caused.
Okay.
So a doctor only has a finite amount of knowledge, and cancer is something that is, you know,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we will have one last round of questioning with the Liberal Party for 2.5 minutes, and that'll be Ms. Hefner.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Kim, I also want to chime in and tell you how impressed we are with your testimony, how valuable your time here has been. Thank you again to you and your husband for your service to our country, which continues to this day. You've now been testifying, I think, for 1.5 hours. So a lot of the questions I had originally wanted to pose have already kind of been touched on in the committee. So forgive me if it seems a bit repetitive. I was curious as how long it took for your husband's diagnosis to be accepted to have been caused by his work. You said that lots of his colleagues also were affected by these chemicals, the AFFF and asbestos. They didn't use protective gear. Do you know with his colleagues who served with him if it was a similar experience and that they were accepted right away as having that disease as directly related to their service?
All I can tell you is that my husband, when he's looking on Facebook, sees that one of his colleagues had passed away from cancer. And so I don't know the stories behind the colleagues, but they all serve together on the same ships. So we just assume that that's what happened.
You haven't been in touch to find out if they've gotten similar levels of compensation. Do you think that it was your local MP who intervened, and you think that made a difference?
I think yes. I think because of that intervention, we were able to expedite his initial application, and we were successful in meeting with the minister. Yeah.
You've also talked quite a bit today about the burden of paperwork that you've had to sort of endure through this process. Do you have any suggestions for us specifically on how to alleviate that burden?
Unfortunately, I think paperwork is going to be around for quite a while. I have a extensive background in records management. We used to call it the paper tiger. It's unfortunately something that has to be done. And the challenge with that as well is some veterans are not computer literate. So for them to maneuver through the online version could be very daunting. So with respect to them, paper is probably preferred.
And
We're actually, pardon me, we're out of time. So that'll end our time on this particular portion of the meeting. Really appreciate your time with us here today, Ms. Kim. I think the committee members learned a lot, and hopefully the recommendations that we make will lead somewhere further than what you've been able to get thus far. So thank you again, and we will close off this portion of the meeting. So I will suspend the meeting. I will just point out to members I'm going to start again in about 5 minutes or less. So about 12:34. I know people will want to have a chance to thank our witness in person, but let's make those brief. And if you're not a parliamentary staff member who is authorized to be in here for an in-camera meeting, if you can please leave the room quickly, so that we can reconvene our meeting as quickly as possible in our in-camera portion. But again, thank you, Ms. Kim. Much appreciated. And meeting is suspended.
Thank you all for having me speak today. I appreciate it.
Meeting
Thank
suspended.
you. Let's see.
I'm getting in here first.
Thank you.